Lazada.
Hello and welcome to Lazada Insider, featuring knowledge that makes a difference. We share trusted insights, forward-looking perspectives, and exclusive expert interviews to keep you ahead of the curve. This series is brought to you by Lazada Group Strategy.
I'm Chen, your host today. Today, we are very excited to be joined by our very first expert guest, Suan Teck Kin from UOB Bank, to share his latest insight on the macroeconomics outlook in Southeast Asia. Teck Kin is the Executive Director in Global Economics and Market Research for UOB. He has more than 10 years of experience in macroeconomics and equity research. Hi, Teck Kin. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Chen. Thank you for your invitation. I'm very happy to be here at this Lazada Insider program.
Thank you. First of all, you are the head of research with UOB. Please tell us a bit more about your positions and what it entails.
Oh, thanks, Chen. My name is Teck Kin. I'm with United Overseas Bank in Singapore. My position is I'm a head of research at this Global Economics and Markets Research. So what we do is that we have two teams. One team will be writing about macroeconomic outlook. For instance, you have data coming out from the country, unemployment rate, inflation, and the rest of other exports, trade data. So we'll talk about those. And then there's another team we'll focusing on exchange rates, interest rates, and also developments in the commodities market. So we have these two teams of colleagues working together. So I lead these two teams to produce reports or video recordings like this one, for Lazada Insider, and presentations for groups, webinars, seminars, and also presentations with, for instance, senior management within the bank or the bank's other business units. And also we meet with our customers, the bank customers, on a regular basis. So that's what we do. We have two teams in Singapore. We also have colleagues in Malaysia and also colleagues in Indonesia as well, looking after those countries and helping our clients making better decisions when it comes to, for example, exchange rate, interest rate, and other things.
So while we are still fighting for COVID-19, but we have the vaccines just rolling out, the distribution already begun, so we can at least see some light at the end of the tunnel. So what will happen to the Southeast Asia economies in both short and long term, in your opinions?
We have to look at it in a short term and also on a longer term basis. Yeah, you are right about that. So in the shorter term, within the next 6 months, 12 months, or even 18 months, within this short period, what we should be focusing on is also is on the vaccination drive that has been going on, like what you mentioned. The vaccination has started for some places, for some countries, but not in other countries. So the progress for these Southeast Asia, for the outlook, will depend on how fast we can do the so-called vaccination. We can vaccinate the population. So one of the things that we look at is, for example, what is the amount of population being fully vaccinated. So let me share some of the data with you to see in the short term, how should we be, what kind of things should we be looking at? And then in the longer term, how are things going to look like? Yeah. So in the shorter term, vaccination is very important. For instance, this worldwide vaccination, the doses have already exceeded the number of people who are infected. Okay, the screen here, it says that 390 million these are doses have been applied to the people. 390 million, they already exceeded the number of people that are infected with COVID-19. All right, so but how many people are being vaccinated, right? Worldwide, worldwide, only 88 million people are being vaccinated fully, the 2 doses. So these 88 million people, and counting, will be more protected against the COVID-19, right? They'll be more protected, or if they get the COVID-19 virus, they don't get sick so easily because these vaccines are supposed to help them. So if you look at the number, actually it's still quite low, right, compared to the number of people being infected. And then if you look at individual countries, that's how many percent of the population in that country so far that have been fully vaccinated, right? Fully vaccinated, that means you have the 2 injections, 2 jabs, fully vaccinated. If you look at the top one, IL, that's Israel. 50% of the population in Israel is fully vaccinated with the 2 doses, 2 jabs, 2 injections. Then the next one, the next highest is US. About 12% of the population in the US is fully vaccinated. Then if you look at some others, all these are very high. Wow, half of the population. How about Singapore? Singapore, you go down the list, SG, is about 4%. Only 4% of the population so far in Singapore are vaccinated, fully vaccinated. 4% only. We have 5.7 million people. How about Indonesia? How about China? They are not here because the number is too small. The number is too small. So that means in the short term, our neighbors, for instance, Indonesia, is only about 0.4%. 300 million people, only 0.4%. In order for the vaccine for your activities, just now we talked about short term. For your activities to become normal, go back to normal, you need at least 50%, 60% of the population to be vaccinated. Okay, 50%, 60%, they call this herd immunity, right? 60%, 70%, maybe 80%, that kind of number. So must have a large enough number. So that means in the short term, can we get to that 50%, 60%? Not so soon, not so soon. So that means in the short term, we are still going to have a lot of difficulties for our lives to go back to normal in Southeast Asia. That means you still have to wear your mask, social distancing. The borders are most important. The borders cannot open. People cannot move in and out. So the tourism sector, the sector that rely on people moving in and out, will be affected significantly still for the next 6 months, maybe even 12 months. Right? Singapore government say, at the end of the year, we may be able to open the border. We may be able, not sure, we may be able to open the borders. We'll see how the progress. So that means in the short term, there will be still a lot of challenges for our many businesses in Singapore, in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and all these places. Okay, I want to show you another screen. How fast can we get to fully vaccinated or herd immunity, 50% or 60%, so that we can get back our lives to normal? Don't have to worry so much of the social distancing, things like that. Still have to wear masks, but you don't have to worry so much. You need to have, there's a timeline here on the screen. The timeline shows that Singapore, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, these places, maybe towards the end of the year, we may get this herd immunity. How about China? Our big, let's say if for tourists, many tourists come from China to, let's say, to Thailand, to Malaysia, to Singapore, maybe even to Indonesia as well. Maybe middle of next year, right? Japan, maybe middle of next year. Vietnam. How about Indonesia? Indonesia, you look at the timeline, it's 2023, according to this schedule from this consulting company, EIU. So it will take some time for life to get back to normal. Why do we want to know about this? Because even if you are fully vaccinated, let's say even in Singapore, 100% vaccinated, but Singapore is so small, right? Outside places are so big, you cannot open up to everybody and let them come in. If let's say they have virus, infection, they come in, they will still cause a problem for our community, right? It's because it's not 100%. Vaccination is not 100% protection. It gives you good protection, but it's not 100%. So we still need elsewhere, outside, everybody in the neighborhood all vaccinated. Okay, so in order for us to get back to normal. So that's the medium term. That's the short term. And it creates a lot of problem for us if we cannot get back to normal. For instance, this is our Changi Airport in Singapore, Changi Airport. You look at the number of people coming in and out of the airport, it's so few, right? If you look at the red line, normally, if you look at the scale, every month before COVID, we can get 3 million each way, 3 million in and out, so it's 6 million, 7 million every month coming in and out of Changi Airport. And then you look at the right-hand side numbers show you only about 1.5 million in January arriving and departing. And look at in transit, only 99 people in transit. Every month, you can see, according to the scale here, maybe 100,000, 50,000 every month. But here in January, you only get less than 100 people using the airport. So our numbers is actually back to 1980. Terminal 1, when we only had Terminal 1. Now we have 4 terminals, right? Terminal 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's how challenging the situation is for some of these countries. Also, another thing about tourist arrivals. Again, tourist arrivals for all the Southeast Asian countries, you can see on the screen, are actually very poor, basically flatline. On the left-hand side, the scale is 5 million, 3 million, 4 million every month. So on the right-hand side, you're only seeing 10,000, 15,000. Indonesia is the best, 140,000. In a normal month, you should be getting, before COVID, you should be getting 3 million, 2 million, 5 million in the million. So short term, I think it's very challenging. This is for the longer term. And 2021, even though it's quite challenging, we are still expecting growth, right? The economy will still be growing. 2021, we'll be back to positive growth, right? This year, back to positive growth. Next year, the numbers are again back to positive, and also 2023. If nothing bad happens, should be back to positive growth for the 2 years and subsequent years. So short term, there will be a lot of challenges, especially for the tourism sector, services business, transport business will be very difficult if they rely on tourists. But over the longer term, 2022, 23, 24, I think we will be back on the growth track, especially vaccination is all coming into more widespread in these countries. Okay.
Got it. So by taking these vaccinations timelines or the plans into considerations, so in your opinion, which sector of the economy are likely to recover the fastest and the slowest?
Right. So if you are talking about in terms of different sectors, Chen, which parts? I think for 2002 last year, 2020, even during the middle of pandemic, I think some sectors actually have done very well. Right. I'll show you later. And taking into the vaccination timeline, I think some sectors will still continue to be under a lot of pressure, but the pressure hopefully will get less with more and more vaccination. Yeah, more and more vaccination. This is a representative. That means many countries facing similar picture also. What are the sectors that do well? MFG is the manufacturing sector. You can see the manufacturing sector has been performing quite well. Managed to expand during a year of COVID, the whole year managed to expand 7%. And then the other sector that is doing well is finance and insurance, right? Financial sector, insurance sector has done well. And the other one is infocoms. The infocoms also have done quite well, not as good as the rest, but it's still on a positive side. The infocoms, the information related sector, the communication related sector, for instance, all these gaming companies, right? Online gaming companies doing quite well. You have these phone companies or internet related companies doing quite well. Company like Lazada, those are internet platform performing quite well during the year. Okay, so these are the sectors that they are doing quite well. And then you have the wholesale and retail. Wholesale is involved in export and imports. So the trade that is involving goods, export import involving goods, not people, they do relatively well or did not decline as much, did not do as badly as others. Right. So these are the group of sectors that is outward oriented. So if I am an exporter, I sell goods overseas, I sell medical goods overseas, or import medical goods, I will be doing much better compared to some other sectors. So these are the outward oriented, right? Outward oriented. You don't have to you are not just focusing on the domestic, local business, right? Not just the local business, but your business is so much wider. So you tend to do better. So which are the one not doing so well? Singapore GDP growth last year declined 5.4%. So that's your headline, right? So inside the headline is like your stock index, your index so much. So what are the components doing well? What are the components not so well? Which are the one? Like for instance, business services, some of the accounting companies, some of these architect companies, the business not so well. Those are the ones. You have the TNS. This is a transport. These are transport and storage, right? Transport and storage. That means, for instance, your Singapore Airlines, even your bus companies, your tour bus companies, transport related, not doing so well because no tourists, right? Or very few tourists that come here, so the business not doing well. A&F, accommodation and food. A lot of it is tourism related. A&F, accommodation and food. So if you don't have enough tourists that come in, then you'll suffer quite a lot. Your hotels, you cannot, there's not enough occupation, the business will come down, right? So these are sector, and then construction sector on the right-hand side. Construction sector, there's another sector that is suffering quite a lot for many countries, not just Singapore, for many countries, because, there's a lockdown going on, so people cannot come out to work and the projects cannot continue. And also some changes in the projects. For instance, in Singapore, Terminal 5, the project has to be cut down. All right, the project has to be cut down or delayed, right? Or delayed. So your business getting less, right? So these are the sectors that don't do so well, that they focus on, let's say, only the local business, or they also focus on tourists. If they don't have enough tourists, then you are going to suffer. So these are a big, broad picture for what are sectors that do well, some of the sectors that don't do very well, and it basically applies to other countries in Southeast Asia as well.
So just now, earlier on, you mentioned that this year, most likely our GDP will back to the positive growth. So during this recovery stage, so what are the opportunities for the local businesses in Southeast Asia?
Okay, so I think this year, not just Singapore, Singapore will recover, let's say 5%, 5.5, even 6%. In US, can do very well. And most of the Southeast Asian economies will be growing again. The income will be rising again. So for businesses, what are the opportunities, right? You ask, to do well. I think for businesses, if you just focus on the local customers, just local customers, then you'll tend to be a bit more vulnerable. But if you look at if your customer base is not just local customer base, but also overseas customers, right? That will expand your market. That will expand your market from local to global, they call it, right? Local to overseas. And especially if my business, for instance, if I open a shop that I service the local, let's say I sell goods, I service the local, I sell to the locals, but part of my business is also sell to the tourists. But unfortunately, the tourists unlikely to come back so soon this year. So my business, one side is down, right? Even maybe my local business is still there, but the other business will be down. So overall, I'm still down compared to the year where you have tourists. So how do I expand my business, right? How do I expand my market? So one way, of course, if your goods can go onto the internet, go into the internet platform, you'll reach out to more customers. Although these tourists, they cannot come to Singapore, for example, or come to Indonesia, come to Thailand. But if you are able to sell your goods to overseas, they don't have to come to you to buy your things, right? They will go onto your website, maybe go to some a platform like Lazada. They will buy your goods from a platform like Lazada, and you can do your business as well without them coming to your shop, right? So that's one way to capture this market, because tourists, for example, they want to go overseas, but they cannot. Borders are closed. I cannot. But how do I also enjoy some of these goods that if I go to that place, I will buy some of these local goods, local products, right? So how do I get my hands on those? Is I will look for online presence. So if you have an online presence, you will be able to reach out to this group of customers, and that will expand your business as well. right? For instance, you have very specific, let's say, handicraft items, okay, or very specific local foods that can have quite a bit of a shelf life. Very specific to the local, very special local food that you can extend the shelf life. You can work with some a platform like Lazada that put on your online presence that will be helpful to your business.
So just now, when you share the insights about the short term, we are still kind of like facing a lot of uncertainties and a lot of challenges. So it is, of course, it's very important for the businesses to try to control the risk as well. So in your opinion, what are some of the key risks that our businesses need to watch out for?
Some of the risks that we need to watch out, Chen, is that we need to be prepared. For instance, although the vaccination has been progressing quite well, but we still have to be prepared that we may not be able to open the country, may not be able to open the borders so soon. For example, let's say Singapore government say, recently one of the ministers say we could open our borders by end of the year. Let's say if the border cannot be opened by end of the year, then what do we do? Right? So business will have to have some backup plan, right? What happens if we cannot open? Then what is my backup plan? What are the things I need to do now in order to prepare that the borders cannot be open? If I'm a hotel, you run a hotel or some other business, if the borders cannot open, what can I do, right? What are the plans that I can use to do that? So that's one thing. Second thing is that for the financial markets, for those companies, for instance, I need to borrow money, right? Many companies, they need to borrow money to fund their business. So you need to be prepared, need to watch closely the movement in interest rates, right? Because interest rates right now are quite low. So if I borrow money, I don't have to worry. But what happens if you need to borrow more money because the border cannot open and then the interest rate is going up, right? So you also need to prepare, talk to your bankers about this. What are your requirements? And the other one is that just now we talk about, if I expand my business to the region, to other outside Singapore, outside the local market, I want to reach out to overseas market. So I need to import goods. I need to import more. So there will be some foreign exchange involved as well. If that's the case, then you need to watch out foreign exchange movements that could affect your business. For instance, I need to import more so that I can distribute to my customers or even my local business, right? My local business is doing well because I go online. People don't have to come to me. Even if there's a lockdown, I don't have to worry. I can still ship out through this platform and things like that. But I need to import more, and your foreign exchange requirements may increase, and that will foreign exchange movements that could affect your profit as well, right? Because if the foreign exchange, if your Sing dollar or rupiah or Thai baht or whatever weaken during that period, let's say there's some emergency, typically the local currency will weaken, but you already committed to import, right? To buy all these goods in US dollar. So then you need to manage, we call that manage these foreign exchange risks or foreign exchange exposures. So these are a couple of risks that we need to monitor very closely, Chen, in order for for businesses to run profitably and also steadily during a period of uncertainty.
So just now you also briefly touched about interest rate. So we know that last year during COVID-19, a lot of central banks actually lowered down their interest rate to encourage more spending. So do you think the trends will continue this year? And how can our businesses actually take advantage on this and better prepare for the future? Because I mean now it's probably at the lowest rate. So I think it's either even if it go down further, eventually it will go up. So how can we prepare for that?
Right. So, Chen, this good question on interest rate. The banks, the local banks, will follow, like most of the time they'll follow the central bank interest rates. That means the direction. If central bank cut, they will lower interest rate. If central bank raise interest rate, the commercial banks will raise their loan rates as well. When WHO say, this is a global pandemic, the COVID-19, all these central banks almost all the central banks cut interest rates, right? Cut interest rate, lower the interest rate. India, Vietnam, and then China, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, blah, blah, all those central banks, they start to cut interest rate, right? Like the staircase coming down. But you notice, Chen, right now the interest rate is kind of like flat already, except Indonesia just cut last month in February. Except Indonesia, you can see that most of the interest rates are already flat for the 1 year. So what we can see right now is that interest rates are already at quite low levels. Any hope of them coming down at this point, unlikely they will come down anymore, right? Very unlikely, because we are talking about this year, the outlook will be better, next year even better. So there's no need for the central banks to do anything more, right? To encourage, let's say, borrowing. So at this point for companies, I think the interest rate is more or less at the lowest levels that you can see. And the next one, we don't know when. The next one, the US Federal Reserve say, 2023, maybe until 2023. So for the next 2 years, maybe you still can enjoy a low interest rate. But at the same time, some of the economies, some of the countries like Vietnam, China, they are doing quite well even during the COVID year. So those countries, they may raise interest rate earlier than many other places, right? So depending on where you are, interest rates are quite low at this point, but you still have to watch out. The central banks, individually within your country, in Southeast Asia, within your country, the central banks may have other things in mind when they look at interest rates. So you do have to watch very carefully and talk to your banker if you're not sure. Tell them your requirements and what you're worried about, and then the bankers will guide you through these guide you through the situation, what to do in the event, let's say, interest rate go up, and things like that, how to protect yourself.
And we see that last year, Southeast Asia just formed the world's largest trading bloc, with China, South Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand outset. So will our local businesses benefit from this trade deal, or we actually we will actually face more competition for all these imported goods from all these countries?
Right, Chana, this RCEP, 15 countries, Southeast Asia, the ASEAN, you are 10, and you mentioned China, Japan, Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, right? So 5, so 15 countries in this RCEP. Now, this RCEP is the world's largest, we call it a free trade agreement, the world's largest free trade agreement. Before that, we already have this ASEAN free trade agreement with many countries already, for instance, with China. So what happens is companies in Southeast Asia, in all these regional countries, they are already open to competition, right? They're already open to competition. It's quite free. Competition can come in, companies can come in and out. So with these RCEP 15 countries, you actually open up to even more opportunities. And companies, even because it's a large free trade zone, so countries that are not in these 15 countries, right? Those are companies that are outside, they will want to be here as well. So definitely there will be more movements for companies that want to take advantage of this from outside. They want to join, this club. They want to come in and join us. So you might have some more competition. But at the same time, for our businesses, the market also expanded, right? With these 15 countries, you can just sell to whichever country with a very low tariff, and tariffs are coming down. So it's actually providing also more opportunities for our business. So that's the reason why I think for our local business, whether you're in Singapore, you're Malaysia, Thailand, should take advantage of this, the RCEP and the ASEAN that you have, expand your market, expand your reach to different markets, because they are all open to you. And to do so, one of the ways, if you're selling goods, consumer goods, one of the ways is through a platform like Lazada that will allow you to reach out to even more consumers.
Last but not least, so do you have any advices to the businesses in Southeast Asia?
Right. So the advice is continue to take advantage of this internet economy, all this e-commerce, whether you are selling goods or whether you are selling services, because some of the services, we know that because of the work from home, all the facilities are there. You have good internet, you have a decent computer, you have a camera, you have other things, comfortable working environment. You can do a lot of things, right, with your computer. So that's a wonderful part about this e-commerce, that we have that allows you to do a lot of things that previously, we only think that we need physical interaction. We can only sell things if we have a shop, right? Of course, this COVID-19 show us that we can actually, some of these things can actually move online on the internet. All right. These platforms, there are many platforms available. For instance, I know some of these, if you are Indonesian, you're in Singapore, you cannot go back to Indonesia, but my areas, my communities, there are people who want high quality goods, right, that can get from Singapore. So this Indonesian in Singapore could be doing the central buying and then sell to the community back in Indonesia, right, through internet platform or e-commerce platform like Lazada. And because of the logistics, now the logistics are quite developed, especially for the large cities. And that is another plus point for us to engage in this online business as well, right? So not just on the physical side, but also on the online. So this e-commerce has a lot of potential that I think businesses should capitalize on.
That's all from my side. Thank you very much for your insights. I really enjoyed these sessions.
This is Lazada Insider, brought to you by Lazada Group Strategy. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you click follow and subscribe so you don't miss our latest insights and expert interviews. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Lazada.